everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. I am so happy today. It's been a long time coming. The guest that we have today for a particular reason. She's been on with us before, but today she's on with a new book, a book that she told us more than a year ago that she was going to write. It's part of a trilogy of books of novels that are perfect beach reading. And this particular book is so close to my heart because it's in a community that I know and love so well. So let me first tell you who our guest is. She is Sunny Hostin. She has won multiple Emmys. She is a co-host of The View. She's my family friend. We'll talk about that too. But she has just written a book called Summer on Sag Harbor. It's a juicy novel that you will want to read. And if you're lucky, you will want to read it when you're on the beach. So please join me right now in welcoming Sunny Hostin.
Oh, thank you for having me, my friend. I'm
I'm
so
so
happy to be back with you.
Yes, indeed. And I'm so proud of you. I mean, you don't just write a book. Let me see. How many pages are there?
Oh, almost 400, I think.
404 pages. This is a juicy novel. It's so well done, Sunny. So I remember
Thank you.
when you wrote the first one about Martha's Vineyard, you said this is a 3-book deal. You're going to be writing 3 novels. As a writer, I've never written fiction. It
Ah,
scares me, but it didn't scare you. You went all the
no.
way in. Can you talk about the process? Like, what is your process like in developing characters and really bringing the
Mhm.
story to life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've written a memoir as well, and I
I
found
know.
that much more difficult than writing fiction,
Really?
actually, believe it or not. I think people are afraid of fiction because it's a world that you've made up. But mine is grounded, as you mentioned, in history. It's grounded in these 3 historically Black beach communities. And so I have my mooring when I start writing. I have the place that I'm writing about, which becomes one of the characters for me, at least. Usually, home is also a character for me because sanctuary is so important. And then I kind of just start for Summer on the Bluffs, I just started thinking about my friends and my family, and I fictionalized them. I mean, some of my friends are like, I think that's me. And
And you're
they're
like,
usually
"Wow!"
right. But I write what I know. Lin-Manuel Miranda told me that. I asked him, how do you, gosh, create the way that you create? And he says he writes what he knows and what he loves. And so he loves history. He wrote Hamilton. He knew the Heights because he grew up around there. And so he wrote In the Heights. And I took that advice really seriously. And so I thought the 3 places that I love to be on the beach uh, with my family and my chosen family and my friends, Oak Bluffs, Sag Harbor, and Highland Beach in Maryland. And I just sort of took off from there. I had my characters. I had a vision board with actors, just so that I could sort of visualize what everyone looked like. And I remember when I first thought of Amma, I had Lena Horne up, just to sort of give a visual for myself. And then I also had Mamie from The Godfather of Harlem. I put her picture up just so that I could sort of imagine what Amma could look like going forward
And
in the
tell
story.
us who Amma is and a bit about what the
Hmm.
story is. We're not giving it away. And on purpose, I should tell you, Sunny, I didn't finish yet
Oh,
because
good.
purpose, because I didn't want to have the possibility of giving away the story when we're talking
Yes.
about it. So I have read a lot. I'm in love with the characters, but
Thank
tell
you.
everybody what does Summer on Sag Harbor talk about? Set us up with the story?
It's a love letter to my readers, actually, because I wasn't sure where I knew where Sag Harbor was, and I knew that that's where I was going to place the book, and it was going to be a character, but I wasn't sure what was next. I wasn't sure if I was going to create all new characters, which I was really interested in doing. But when I went on my virtual book tour, and I had to go on a virtual book tour because, as you know, my novel came out during the pandemic. A lot of my readers kept on saying, I want to know more about Olivia. I want to know more about Olivia. What happened to Olivia? And so, the Summer on the Bluffs is a story of 3 god sisters different ages, but very close in age, and their godmother, their chosen mother, Amma, who's sort of a benefactor, kind of mysterious. She's a woman who's unapologetic about her choices, unapologetic about never having children, but having these children as her chosen children. And she's in her 60s, and she found new love again, which is a theme I
Yes.
wanted to explore. But without giving away Summer on the Bluffs, because what's interesting is that now more people are reading Summer on the Bluffs before
Yes,
reading
you
Summer
have to.
on
You got to
Sag.
get ready.
Yeah, I was surprised that the book sales sort of shot up for the first book, but this is Olivia's journey. Out of the three god sisters, one god sister's name is Perry, the other one is Billy. This is Olivia, and I think people felt like they wanted to know more about her. She was in a place in the first book where I don't think she understood her value. I don't think she knew exactly what she wanted. I think she was thrown by a lot of the events that happened in her life. And so this book follows Olivia to Sag Harbor, where she's trying to find a new sense of community. She's trying to deal with grief. She's trying to deal with loss. And she's trying to deal with her fiance. I
Yes.
have them in, his name is Anderson, have them in an interracial relationship and sort of all that comes with that. And I also decided to place it in the pandemic, which I
Right.
was a little nervous about because it was such a hard time, I think, for so many of us. And some would argue that it's still kind of here with us.
Sure.
But I thought you can't ignore that. You can't ignore what we collectively went through historically. I mean, I think this is something that'll be, of course, in the history books. And so I wanted to make sure that I would place it there. So it's still, though, fun and, sexy in parts, but the real story is community and how so many of us came together. I mean, Harriet, you and I were on Sag Harbor to
Yes.
get in Sag Harbor together during the pandemic, and people just kind of moved the party outside, and we were wearing masks, but we were still finding that sense of community. And that's what Olivia's journey really is about. Like, and I think it's very relatable for women, especially during that time. And I also explore therapy because it's such a
Yes.
I don't know. It's something that's not talked about. It's so stigmatized, especially for Black women. And I feel like we hold up the world on our shoulders. It's like, if anybody needs therapy, we probably need it. But because of healthcare and because of the stigma, people don't do it. And I felt like I wanted Olivia to explore herself with the help of a Black female therapist, Dr. LaGrange, um, just so to give people some insight into what those sessions look like and
Right.
almost give people permission to, if they see Olivia doing it, maybe they'll do it too. So that was also, but I wanted to go back to my process because
Yes.
other than thinking through my characters, I'm not really an outline writer, but I
Mm,
do write chapter outlines. So
okay.
sort of where I want to go, and I write late at night. So I've been kind of thinking about it. I'm usually thinking about the book during the day, and I may jot down a few notes. But when it comes to my writing time, which is usually between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., I just start writing. I think everybody has a story in them, and I start
It's your
writing. I can.
magic time.
Yeah, it's my magic time. I mean, I can say there are times when after 2 hours, I'm like, well, that shot, I'm going to throw that away. But
That's
for the
part of
most
it,
part, I
right?
get some gold. Yes, because I get some gold. So,
You mentioned the three novels are set in these historically Black beach communities
mhm,
in America, which let's start with a lot of people don't know that that's a thing.
yeah.
That, historically, what people think of more are all of the horrific things that have occurred and
Mhm,
to African Americans, but there are some incredible things that have occurred, and one of them being this community for this book, Sag Harbor. And as you said, well, we've been seeing each other in Sag Harbor for years, and I'll get to in a minute, our earliest connections, but just for as it relates to Sag Harbor, it became a refuge for people who know and love this community even more in the pandemic. I remember,
Yes.
we live in Manhattan and Harlem and love being here. However, during the pandemic,
Mhm,
the awful things happen, and people were displaced, and we ended up just it was unsafe and
Yeah.
unhealthy and unhappy, and we were blessed to be able to basically move
Hmm.
for the whole summer. And the bubble that we were able to create, as you say, we took everything out to the beach, but it was a very small community of people who were together during
Yeah.
the summer,
Yeah.
and thank God for that. And
Yeah.
and you in your book, well, first I wanted to talk about who you dedicate your book to Bill Pickens, to Uncle Bill. He
Yeah.
was the
Unofficial mayor
godfather,
of Sag
the
Harbor.
unofficial mayor of Sag Harbor. Can you just tell us about Bill Pickens? Because he is, I loved that you dedicated the book to him. And
Yeah.
who is he to this incredible community?
I mean, he's everything. He's the history. I likened him to the historian of Sag Harbor. I mean, I know you spoke at his funeral, and your eulogy was so beautiful. I remember even taking notes because you captured who he was so wonderfully. He was this just
Thank you.
brilliant, welcoming history buff. And I met him the first day I visited Sag Harbor. It was really interesting. I was invited by Barbara Smith, who's no longer with us as well, but better known as B. Smith. And Barbara had a restaurant on Sag Harbor, and I used to go to her restaurant here in Manhattan. And she said, "I'm opening up a place in Sag Harbor. You got to go to that." And I always thought of the Hamptons as a very Tony, very wealthy, and very white community. And I was like, "Huh, okay, well, let me
Mhm.
check it out, see if I'm welcome." And I had such a great time at her restaurant. And then she took me to her home, which was right on the beach.
Yep.
And I was just walking through her home, and I saw all this, I mean, this Black excellence just sort of
Yes.
on the beach. And I was kind of like floored by that because I had always gone to Martha's Vineyard since I was like 12 years old. Yet I'm a New Yorker. And this is, 2 hours from my home.
Right.
And I started walking on the beach. I thanked Barbara for her time, and I started walking on the beach. And I saw this person just either picking up shells or anything that was sort of in the way for little kids to, possibly step on. He was
Yes.
picking things up. And he said, "Welcome home. How are you?" And
Oh,
and that
welcome
welcome
home.
home, just it really, it has always stayed with me.
Mhm.
And his my understanding is that his family was one of the first families that settled
True.
in Sag Harbor. And so you had a group of people some say it's the 30s, some say it's the 40s, but a group of civil servants and nurses and doctors and lawyers, teachers, they got together and they decided to buy this bayfront property, which was undesirable to the white community at the time because it wasn't oceanfront, it was
Right.
bay. And what's lovely about the bay is when you have kids, you can walk out 200 yards and
That's
the water's
right.
still at your waist. So I felt like it was a very safe haven, and I never stopped going back. And that was probably 20 years ago.
Yep.
And every time I came back, he was the first person to greet me.
Mhm.
And it was just like, okay, it's your time. Because I usually go there, definitely always July 4th, but sometimes Memorial Day. And he would say, "Up, summer started. The Hostin clan is here." And it was
Yeah.
just so wonderful. And I was sort of adopted, like, with he's got three children, but Bill, Slim, and Pam, and they kind of adopted me, and they
Yep.
gave me some of the history, and it wasn't unusual for um, I used to call him Mr. Pickens to sit with me and my friends outside and have a little glass of rosé. He's been on our boat, and just he was just such a treasure. It was a blessing to get to know him. I think I, along with everyone else, was pretty devastated when he passed,
Yep.
even though he lived this long, beautifully fruitful life. Um, I just never imagined him not being here because
I
he was just
know.
always there.
And Sunny, since COVID, I mean, we've been coming for, I don't know, 30 years or more
Yeah.
to Sag Harbor. But during the COVID period, my family actually stayed in his house in the mother-in-law suite
Oh,
in the back of his
yes.
house. So we were with him every day for
Amazing
for 2
man.
summers, and he would come and talk to my husband and show he had
Oh,
a
that memorabilia was,
memorabilia of all time. His family, forget about it. He could trace back to the 1800s,
yes, he
and
could.
he would sit and share stories of his family and of the community. And he was a griot. He was
He
a griot,
really was.
right?
He was our storyteller. He was our history teller. He actually, I have some things that he sent me, and he sent me some letters written by his great grandfather, and
Yeah.
they are so special and poignant. He wrote the letter of recommendation for my son to go to college. I mean, it was we became that close, and
Close.
I
Yeah.
think we just loved listening to the history. He truly was a historian and spoke several languages, spoke
Lived
some
in Japan for
Japanese.
years.
Yes. Just, it was, I mean, he was just a behemoth of a man. I mean, just like, he just huge, huge presence. And I will say the time, we first time we got back there without him, I felt it. Um, I felt a little lost, but what was wonderful was the community again came around. His daughter came around, his son came around, and now they sit on the porch. And so it continues. So it's still very special. It's still very special.
Yeah,
He
no,
left quite a legacy.
I'm glad we could take a moment to honor him, and we will continue. And so Sag Harbor represents so much. It represents history, potential, the greatness despite whatever challenges come. And in your book, you share that. Also the intrigue and the gossip and the
Gotta have a little
fashion.
gossip.
The gossip. Okay, so wait. Without you don't have to tell too much detail, but give us a sense because you kind of dig in a little bit and give us some gossip. It's good.
Well,
You get that language really well, Sunny.
thank you. Well, I think that when we're on vacation on the beach, that's kind of what we do. Like we get out there and we have our rosé and we have our champagne, but we're catching up too. We're catching up. And the catch up generally includes just a little bit of, oh, did you hear about so and so?
That's right.
What? Oh, wow. Are you sure? Very sure. Ask so and so. And I love that part of it. I think it's just part of the community. I love the parties where you see people sort of connecting, and then you start wonder, wow, is that going to be a couple? And sure enough, next summer that's a couple. So I love observing people, as you know about me. I'm a watcher in a sense, and so during my observations, I generally want to write about what I see and what I hear. I think it's very important to keep confidences, and so I couch things a little differently. But a
Yeah.
lot of the things I write about really happened. And one of the things that I did write about, and I'm sure you saw it too, and you experienced it, was this gentrification that started going on. I mean, initially in Sag Harbor, it was about 90% African American owned, if not more. And those
Yeah.
stats are not mine. I got them from Mr. Pickens,
Sure. That's real.
and he said, well, now I'm feeling like it's a little 60-40, maybe 70-30. And I remember we walked by this house, and the house had just a staircase, but nothing else. And I remember asking him, "What is this thing with this staircase?" He said, "Well, we had some new people move in and didn't want to come to the association, and they decided to tear out all the uh, plantation that had been there, and decided that they were going to just build a staircase to their property direct from the beach. And what Mr. Pickens told me was what they didn't realize is that vegetation is there for a reason. It's there to prevent erosion. It's there to protect all of the homes from possible water damage with the rising sea level. I mean, he was not only a historian, he was, a scientist as well. I mean, he just knew all these things about how the water was moving and where it was going. And so Mr. Pickens, along with other people that belong to the Sag Harbor Homeowners Association, I belong to it. I pay my dues, and they stopped the building. And so he
Mm.
used to affectionately call it the bridge to the stairs to nowhere. And
Wow.
and that's the thing. They are the stairs to nowhere, because this is very much a community that people want to preserve and take care of. And when you become part of the community, you need to hold it dear to your heart as well. And that's what they did. They were being protective of the community. And I think that couple sold the house. Maybe they were just so upset about this situation. But in these, I think that's what's lacking sometimes, in our communities, is that we don't care about each other, and we don't care enough about preserving the authenticity and the safety of our communities. With that vegetation gone, the home that I'm usually in, that I stay in, it could also be flooded, and that's
Yes.
not great. Those are
No,
right on the beach.
no, it's not. One of the things that I learned, Sunny, about the community, well, two things. 100 years before this community, Sag Harbor Hills, Nineveh, Azurist, that we love so much, that's called Sands, and you write about it
Sands.
and name
Hmm.
it in your book. 100 years before was Eastville, which is
Yes.
just, a stone's throw away, as the saying goes, where free Black people built community. So this is
Hmm.
like something for people to take pause. Free Black people. There are homes there that have only passed hands among free Black people.
Yes.
And some people will remember the Amistad ship uh,
Hmm.
that docked at Montauk, that was a slave ship,
Yep.
and many of the enslaved people escaped, and so there is a route on the Underground Railroad from Montauk,
Yes.
and in that church, that little church in
The
Eastville,
tabernacle.
that is
Or
it
no,
called
the other one.
tiny little
The other
church in
one.
Eastville, and what behind the pulpit is a trap door where they would
Yes.
hide runaways to make sure that they were safe. I mean, it's haunting
I
to
had that in a version of the book, and as you said, it's 404 pages. So I had a lot of history in the book, which I edited. But in retrospect, I sort of wish I would have kept some of that rich history in it. I tried to fit in as much as I could,
there
but
is
it is
definitely rich history
amazing.
in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then 100 years later, because they in 40s, 50s is when Black professionals came to the neighborhood that we now
Right.
know and love. And part of that had to do with the covenants. There were people don't know this, but there were covenants, some of which haven't even been erased, even though they're not
Yes.
followed now, where Blacks and Jews were not allowed to
Not
buy
allowed.
property all over the United States, including in this beautiful area. So the Bay, as you said, which was not desired
Yeah.
by wealthy white families because it wasn't on the ocean, became, the castaway, which is the gem for
It is the
us.
gem.
It
It's
is
such a
the gem.
gem.
It is.
Yeah.
And you describe it so well. One of the things that I appreciate about your work, and I said this to you with your book about Oak Bluffs, you take when we go into the house and we see beautiful art on the walls by our contemporary Black artists, and you name
Yeah.
them, and then we can look them up, or sometimes we
Yeah.
know them. I mean, that level of detail matters, because again, a lot of people don't even know this exists. I think, Sunny, like when the Cosby Show came out so many years ago,
Mhm.
that's when we started seeing Black art on the walls, right? There was Varnett,
Absolutely.
this one and that one. It's still rare. That was like 40 years
I
ago. It's
know.
still rare, right?
I know. It was very important to me to do that. And it's interesting because my editor in the first book, she said, "Well, it can be taken a couple of ways. Some people are going to think, well, why is she name dropping all these designers and these artists? And is this something that's going to feel unattainable?" And I was like, "No, that's not the intention. And I think people will receive the intention in the way that I'm putting it out there. I want people to know that this sort of excellence exists in our community. I mean, we read so much about our trauma,
Yes.
as people in this country. But there are pockets of beauty and pockets of success and pockets of excellence. I would dare say more excellence than we get credit for, and
Mm-hmm.
more excellence that people are taught about. And in fact, there's a movement now. Like I'm thinking it's sort of a paper genocide where they're erasing these accomplishments and
Oh, yeah.
erasing these communities. And so I wanted to pay homage to our artists like a Charlie Palmer or a Kehinde Wiley, or these kinds of people, so that people would look it up. And what's been fascinating to me is I've had people like Charlie say, my sales went skyrocketed.
Oh, I'm
And
so
when I
happy.
ask people where they hear it from, they said they read it out of your book. And I was like, that was my intention. I
Love
wanted people to do that. I went on to Martha's Vineyard last summer, and the owner of C'est La Vie, which is a store it's black
that.
owned. I always
Yes.
stop in. I buy my AK paraphernalia, and I buy little knickknacks and books. He said his sales went up over 100%. And when
Wow.
he asked them, "How did you hear about us?" They said, "Summer on the Bluffs" by Sunny Hostin. And so he started carrying the book, and he said it kept
Very
on
good.
selling out, which was amazing to me. But my intention certainly wasn't to sell more books, but it was really to just teach about our artwork, our cuisine, I write about cooking a lot because I like to cook.
Yes.
I write about beekeeping because there's like a Black Beekeepers Association that a lot of people don't know about. There are all these things that I thought, these things are excellent.
They
And why don't we know more about these things?
And
So
we
I
also know
wrote to
about
it.
the civil rights aspect of excellence
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
some of the business aspect of excellence, but this is like the
Yeah, the
lifestyles,
culture.
the culture. There are two programs that I think of as I'm reading your work. One is Soul Food, both the movie and the
Oh,
TV
thank
series,
you.
and also Being Mary Jane. Remember with
Oh, yes,
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 with
with
Gabrielle
Gab Union. Mhm.
Union. And so, I said this to you before, but when now reading this book, I just see the films, I see the TV shows. Am I the only one seeing this, or do we
No,
think
you're
it's coming?
not. It's interesting. I did not see that. Like, while I did cut out pictures just to kind of give myself a storyboard and just so that I could envision these people, I remember telling my editor, I think I'm going crazy. She said, "Why?" I said, "Carrie, because now, like, I'm hearing their voices, like
Yeah,
I'm seeing them. I know what they're gonna say." She said, "No, just means you're a fiction writer," which was like great feedback for me because I was like, I'm not going nuts because I'm dreaming like with Alma's voice, or I'm dreaming with
right.
Omar's voice, and Carter. I know what Carter looks like. And what I decided in a real real way was that these were just going to be books. And I gave a copy of the book to Octavia Spencer in the
Mm.
hopes that she would post it on Instagram, I think is what I wanted. I'm not even sure what I wanted, to be honest with you. I was just like, read my book. And I gave her a manuscript. It wasn't even a hard copy at the time. And she read it really quickly in about 2 days. She called me from LA and she said, this is going to be a series. It's either going
Yep.
to be a movie or a series. I can see it. And let me explain to you why I should be your production partner. And I was at the time, I have my own production. I know I have my own production company now, but I didn't then. And I was just like, what? Are you serious? And she said, yep. I just want to be the first one in because you're going to get a lot of phone calls once this comes out because it's not
I
out yet.
agree.
And she was right. I got phone calls from, Will and Jada Pinkett Smith's company and my dear friend Will Packer. And they were all saying, like, let me tell you why you should I should partner with you.
Love it.
But Octavia was first. She came to me first. She saw the vision, and we are producing it for a streaming series.
Yeah.
We have a showrunner. I can't tell you where exactly because the ink's not dry, but we have a showrunner. Her name's Elizabeth Hunter. She wrote Jumping the Broom.
Right.
She wrote The Five Temptations. She's an incredible writer. So, of course, because of the writer's strike, her pen is down right now and our writer's room is shut down. But hopefully by next summer, when Highland Beach is coming out,
Mhm.
you'll see Summer on the Bluffs That's the title. And they're interested in Summer on SAG now that it's also a New York Times bestseller.
I love
So
it,
both of
and
them.
so many congratulations. It's so funny,
Thank
I wrote
you.
my first book was Jumping the Broom, The African
Yes,
American Voting Planet. So when I saw that film come out, I was, like, so happy that
she
things
really gets it.
yeah, she's good. She's
She's
really
good.
good. I'm happy
Yeah.
to hear that. Okay, I wanna pivot,
Okay.
because in just thinking of legacy in our community and all, I just have to pay homage to how we came to know each other, which is
Yes.
through, my
Your
father,
dad.
my
Yeah.
dad, who, for those who don't know, my father was Harry Cole. I'm named for him. He was a prominent judge in Baltimore, Maryland. He was the
Yes,
first
he
Black judge
was.
on the Maryland Court of Appeals, and he was instrumental in he was like the architect of making sure that his protege, Judge Robert Bell,
Del.
became the
Mhm.
chief judge of the Maryland Court of Appeals, which was also historic. And
Yeah.
Sonny was worked with Judge Bell,
I
and
clerked
therefore
for Judge
yeah,
Bell.
he was there. So
But
tell
let me
us
tell you,
about
you work for Judge Bell, you're working for Judge Cole too. I didn't know that when I signed on. But you work for both of them, which was it was just so special because how do you get the opportunity to work with these titans of law at the same time, with so much history, and they took great care of me. And when I say that, I mean in the sense that they wanted me to be the best lawyer I could be. They wanted me to be the best writer I could be. They wanted me to be the best orator I could be. They wanted me to be the best thinker I could be. And I gave them a hard time. I mean, anybody that knows me and watches me on television, like I'm not really a pushover. And I'd argue, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And here I am, all of 20, and I
good
would
for
argue,
you. I
and
was scared of my father. I mean, I would
I
argue with him.
argued.
He was a tough
He
one.
was a tough cookie, and the two of them together would double team me and pepper me with questions, but it made me better.
Mhm.
It made me more humble for sure. It was a humbling experience because I was always wrong. They were right. But it taught me, how to have that engagement, respectfully, the
Mm.
free exchange of ideas. And I just remember at first, Judge Bell asked me to go get Judge Cole something. And I remember thinking, I would never say it out loud. Doesn't he have two law clerks too? I mean, he has clerks too. Why am I? But I wouldn't say anything, especially if Judge Cole would ask me to look at something. I mean, neither of them would ask anyone to look at anything if they didn't think they had it here,
Right.
And so
That's right.
I I I now know it was because they respected me and respected my work. And that kind of education you don't pay for. You
Oh,
can't pay for it. I was telling someone this story, and actually Judge Bell came to The View, which he's not really a television person,
no.
but he showed up to celebrate my 50th birthday, and he told this story about my first uh, opinion that I wrote for him. That's how it works with judicial law clerks. You write the opinion first, and then you give it to your judge, and they either accept it or they don't. He just kind of, and Judge Cole was in the office, of course, because they used to hang out together in chambers all the time,
All the
and
time.
he read through it in a cursory way, in my opinion, and he probably showed it to Judge Cole, and they were snickering as I went back in to get my accolades, and he just put a red line across it, just the first page,
The red
and
line.
just the red line, and wrote "try again."
Ooh.
And I was like, "Try again," like as in the first page? I mean, I just couldn't imagine he's talking about try again
A
because I had
whole
given him
thing.
like 30 pages
Ooh.
and had worked really hard. And your father said something like, "You heard the man, try again." I was like, "Should I? Okay, I'm trying again." What a blessing, when you think about it. You've got again these two titans that are telling you try again, and that has helped me in my book writing. Like I'm
I
writing
bet.
it, I write my 50 pages. I'm like, I gotta try this again.
Yeah.
This is not it. It's not quite there. My editor complains all the time. She's like, "Can I be the editor and tell you whether or not you need to try again, which I'm trying very hard to do it, but I was taught by working with those judges to trust my instinct more, know
Mhm.
when I didn't do my best, know when it could be better. And you can't pay for that education.
Oof,
You can't.
you absolutely cannot. My most famous story about my father that was traumatic, it's only not traumatic in my later adult years. I was probably in the 7th grade, Sunny. And so let me preface, my father was class valedictorian at
Oh yeah.
Morgan
Oh yeah.
and wasn't at graduation because he had already enlisted in the army to go to World War II. I mean, he was
Hmm.
that guy. And so, I'm named for him. I want to be like him. He was a straight A
Yep.
student. I was, almost a straight A student. In the 7th grade, I came home I don't remember what the subject was, but I came home with a test for which I'd received a 98. I was so proud.
Where's the other 2 points?
Girl, without a smile on his face, he looked at me and asked that question, where are the other 2 points?
I've
I
become your
was
father.
devastated. I was devastated. And I had processed it forever. Now, I tell my daughter who's now in college, I only got 2 B's in college, and they both were
Hmm.
because of a boy. It's really true. I got
Oh, isn't
distracted.
that
Like,
true?
don't let those boys distract you, or whoever your love interests are. Don't let them distract you. But
Isn't that the truth?
but
Oh,
I now understand. It's like if you can get a 98, why
you
leave
can get
anything on the
100.
table? Why
You can
leave
get a
anything?
100.
And you can learn it all. You can be excellent at it all.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that. I was just talking to Deborah Roberts, who's written this
Oh, I
incredible.
love her.
Isn't
I'm
she
in
great?
that book. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm in that book.
wonderful. So I'm reading it now with everybody telling stories about the educators
They're
who
teachers.
the
Hmm.
teachers who they love so much. And for me, anyhow, my father was one of the greatest teachers
Oh,
in
yes.
my life.
No
And
question.
yeah, it's something. And he was the first person I saw to put a red line through a document. He did it to himself, Sonny, when he would be at home.
Oh, that
Yeah.
makes me feel better because that red line was hurtful.
Oh, it is hurtful. I watched him. I didn't know what editing was. This was when I was a little girl, and I always
Yes.
wanted to be a writer. And he would have his, I don't know what they're called, maybe brief. I don't know
His
what,
briefs,
or maybe
opinions,
his
probably
opinion, things
opinions.
that he had
Hmm.
written.
Yeah.
And he was going through line by line and crossing things out and putting edits
Oh,
in
yeah.
in the left and right corners, and it was
Oh, yeah.
perfect handwriting. And I was like, I mean, he was tearing it up, and
Yes.
it was his.
So that's what's wonderful because he didn't expect any, and Judge Bell didn't either. They didn't expect anything of me that they didn't expect of themselves. And they knew I was good enough to do it. And that kind of, I think, support when someone believes that you can do it. Because Judge Bell would say, "You're better than this."
Right.
And I would be like, "No, I'm not. I just did as well as I can."
And the push.
Like,
But
I know.
Darren Walker from the Ford Foundation was just talking about
Hmm.
his essay that he wrote in Deborah's book, and that there was a teacher who said to him, basically, if you keep acting up and you don't control yourself, your life is not going to be what it should be.
Yeah.
And he, he pointed out this thing like the great teachers, the great people in our lives help us to see the potential in
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes. I
So
have
important.
similar experiences for Deborah's book, which is really a wonderful book. I think it's a New York Times bestseller, where she was asking what teachers changed your life. And I thought two teachers changed my life. One was my third grade teacher who saw this kid that wanted to play hooky, who wanted to hang out in the
Right.
hallways, was always making jokes, and she wanted to know why. And it was because I already knew the subject matter. I already knew what was being taught. I had read
It
through
was
all the
too
books.
easy.
And she saw, you should be skipped. And that was the first teacher that really saw me and saw that I was bored and I was acting up out of boredom. Had she not noticed that, I don't know where I would be. And then my second teacher was the principal of my high school because I, again, started kind of missing the first class. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna get an A in that anyway, so I'm gonna miss it. And you should miss your first class. You shouldn't miss any class because it's a privilege to be being educated. My parents were paying a lot of money to try to
Right.
get me the best education. And I remember she said something very similar to me, which was, if you don't put in the work, I mean, you have it naturally, but if you don't put in the work and try to be the best person you can be, the best student you can be, you'll never achieve what God meant you to.
That's
And
right.
I was like, oh, wow. Now she's throwing God in there. She's saying,
Because
I'm
it's
not going to
all
meet
right
my
there.
God fulfilled. I'm not going to meet what God gave to me,
Wow, that's powerful. So
Yeah.
now you have been on The View how many years now?
Ooh, 7.
7 years. That's a good long
I
time.
thought it was 6, and I was just reminded by our PR person to stop saying 6 during interviews. That it's been 7. I said, "Ooh, has
7 years.
it?"
What what do you love about it, and what impact do you think those conversations have on culture?
Yeah. Well, what I love about it is that our conversations actually are impactful. There's not a place that I've gone where someone doesn't say, "Thank you for using your voice for me." And
Yes,
and that's what I set out to do every single day. I set out to give, yes, it's my perspective, but I also know it's perspective of a marginalized community that doesn't have this platform of 3 million people watching and listening. And
that's
so I
right.
try to do my best to explain where the community is coming from and why the community is where it's at and things like that. And I was recently in Ghana. They watched The View in Ghana.
Wow,
Who would have thunk it, right? Like I was like, what? And here I was in the Ghanaian market trying to haggle because I'm from the Bronx, so I'm a haggler.
that's right.
I've never seen. I never want to pay full price, even in the department stores. And the guy comes up to me that I'm haggling with and says, "Aren't you the lady from The View?" My husband was like, "Stop haggling. He knows you have the money." Just
I
buy
love
the fabric. It was fabric I was haggling over, hand dyed
I
fabric.
love that.
That was beautiful. But it's the platform. It's the ability to give voice. That's really what it is. It's just the ability to give voice to people that don't have it. And I don't think we always get it right in terms of the tenor of our conversations, right? Sometimes it's gone off the rails, unfortunately. But most of the time we do okay. And we give these different perspectives and people listen to it.
They
And it's
do.
it's it's amazing. It's been an amazing journey. It hasn't always been easy because
Sure.
when you give your opinion, I would say 50% of the viewers don't like it, and they
Right.
see you as this one-dimensional person. They don't know you personally, but we do share a lot of personal things, so they feel like
That's
they
true.
know you. And that
And
that part is a little bit hard.
Sonny, I wanna say right now in our culture, I feel like so many people are on edge that all it takes is the tiniest little flicker from a
Oh
match, and
yeah.
all is going to explode, and
Yes,
you all address a lot of these hot button issues,
we do.
giving voice, which is really important, but I'm curious, like, h what do you s when you take the temperature of what's going on, what do you think the state is that we're in? Because it feels really volatile to me.
It feels volatile to me as well. And since I get death threats, I know that there are some people out there that have very strong opinions.
That's right.
Um, Look, I think discourse is good. I think our country is one of the only countries in the world where you can say what you want to say, and you have the freedom to do it.
Mhm.
And so I know that I think most people come from a place where they want this country to live up to its promise, and they
That's
want their country to be the best country there is. And I think we've come a little short of that promise. And
mhm.
so, you know, while it's divisive, I'm hopeful that the intention behind the divide, not the stuff that we're being fed from certain politicians for political purposes and for political gain, but people near you, near your communities, I think what people want is health and happiness and
Yeah.
their families to be safe. I think at bottom line, we all sort of want the same things. We're just getting at it in a different way. And I think most of all, we want our country to be better. And you should never be afraid to speak up for that. And I'm not going to stop. And I know my co-hosts aren't going to stop. We may get there in different ways, but we all want the same thing. We want a better life for everyone.
We do.
Right?
Earl Graves told me one time, and he learned this from Bobby Kennedy, who he was the front man for back in the day. He said, sometimes we have to stand in harm's way, even if it means that we may lose something, because somebody has to be willing to lose. And this makes me think of our friend, Don Lemon.
Yes.
He stood up. I mean,
Yes,
I know
did.
people have lots of opinions, but I watched him stand up for Black people, stand up for LGBTQ, stand up for what's right. And I believe in part that's why he lost his job.
I would agree. Don and I have been friends over 20 years.
I know.
And Don is not a misogynist. Don loves women. Don is not a bigot. He's not hateful. And what's hurtful to me is that we need his voice. And I'm sure he's going to be able to use it again and use his journalistic chops again. I actually just spoke to him the other day. I'm trying to, he has a home in Sag Harbor, and he wants to host a book party for me, and I'm all in. His voice is sorely missed. Yeah. I think Tiffany Cross's voice sorely missed. And I think what's saddening to me is that isn't there room for their voices? Isn't there room for a different set of opinions? And I'm disappointed that we're seeing the silencing of these important voices for the Black community.
And isn't there room for people to make mistakes? I mean, it is true. Don said something unfortunate, and he got
reprimanded. And he apologized for it.
There's so many things that people have
entire
said.
network.
There's so many things
that his entire network.
People have said that are wrong in one elective office. Hello, we could go on and on about this, but I know we both love Don Lemon and wish him the best. And we all need to be able to forgive each other for the mistakes we make and move on. And meanwhile, let us all spend this summer on the beach, my favorite place in Sag Harbor. I absolutely recommend Summer on Sag Harbor by Sunny Hostin. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. And congratulations on your star in the Bronx, right?
Thank you. I got a star on the Bronx Walk of Fame. It's actually an entire street sign, which I was a little thrown by, and it's right in front of the Bronx courthouse, which is like, that's real for me.
That's so good. Congratulations, Sunny. See you in SAG.
Yes, and look for Highland Beach, Summer on Highland Beach. I'm about 150 pages in, so that should come out hopefully next summer.
All right, we'll be talking to you then.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, that was great talking to Sunny Hostin. Go pick up your copy of Summer on Sag Harbor right now. It's a wonderful read. I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.